Oh no.
What?
I just got another notification that one of my Hasbro payments was completed. I don't know. I don't know what shipped.
Rachel, I would say if one is in a situation where one is being charged for things that you don't even know what it is, there might be a problem.
I know what it is. I have an idea which of the 6 pre-orders it's for.
One of the 6.
Star Wars, Transformers, Godzilla, animation, whatever else. Rebels, robots, and etc.
Well, it's Wednesday night. No, it's Tuesday night. We're recording a day early. And Cameron and Rachel are hanging out yet again, which must mean that it's Starformers Mation night. No Zilla tonight, but it is animation, so I'll leave the Mation in there. Starformers Mation night. Welcome to Rebels and Robots and Rotoscoping, which is something I forgot to say for our 3-part animated Ghibli series.
It's not all rotoscoped though.
But that's our word to represent animation. Until we find a better one, we have Rebels for Star Wars, Robots for Transformers, RAR for Godzilla / Kong, and rotoscoping is animation. Off to a great, just beautiful. We would have a lot more of that. We at one point say we were considering doing. Rachel was maybe not going to be able to get to eat before we recorded, and so we would have. Rachel would have been eating on mic.
And no one wants that because then we really would have been would have been bullying Cameron.
Right in if you want Rachel to eat on mic. If you want an episode of her consuming a meal, that's like a.
It feels like some weird content.
Like that wouldn't be the whole thing, but there are people who like either really love or really hate when people are eating. I think obviously people hate the noises, but to other people I think it makes it feel more like conversational.
Instead of me, we'll just get a third mic and put it by Athena's bowl.
She's loud enough. She doesn't even need a mic. If she goes over them, starts munching,
starts peaking the audio,
and we cut to the Athena dish cam. We're already off the rails. This is rough.
Can you imagine if we had an Athena cam? We'd have to move it like every 30 minutes.
Well, Athena dish cam.
Oh.
Anyways, way off topic. This is Rebels and Robots and Rotoscoping, episode 64. It's almost as old as us. I'm Cameron.
I'm Rachel.
And this is our bi-weekly chat about Star Wars and...
Transformers.
Woo! And whatever else we both want to talk about. It's been a great Septformers month. Unfortunately, month doesn't mean as much for this podcast since we only record bi-weekly. But
brother, this guy stinks.
And take a shot if you're playing the Rebels and Robots drinking game, because there's our obligatory SpongeBob reference. Whatever. I had a little strong right there. Whatever else we want to talk about, which normally includes Godzilla animation.
But not Godzilla animation.
Well, I was thinking about that. If we really run dry, people will say they really like the late 90s animated show. That's a continuation of the Broderick film. I think it could be. I've never seen it. But you know what? I'm now realizing. You know the meme of like, we got blank before GTA 6? For you, it's we covered blank before we covered Transformers Prime. I think you might riot if we covered the animated...
This is the worst thing that you could say to me. This is the worst thing that you could have said to me or suggested. I think you deserved the bullying you got over the weekend for that.
Oh, from your cat?
Yeah.
I still have a little bit of a scratch on my finger.
She actually scratched you?
Yeah, I went to...
Athena!
She was not happy.
Well,
she was stressed.
If anyone
really.
breaks into my apartment, like I'll just have to tell the cops, just go look in the near urgent care for whoever got
She's a lot more passive aggressive than she is aggressive. Anyways, well, we're already like 5 minutes in, have not even broached any of our topics. Today we will be talking about...
We gotta fill some dead air because we're not doing the memes anymore.
We are doing memes. I just don't have any this week. We're not doing the game, but you can show as many memes as you want.
Oh, as many memes as I want?
I mean, as many as you have. I mean, you have.
Cameron, I never count.
Well, that's a problem.
Today,
are talking about the theatrical release of Transformers 1, the first Transformers 9. Oh, that's how many memes you have. One could call it Transformers 7.
Shoot, I forgot to say.
One could call it Transformers 1. One could call it Transformers...
Could twal it.
8, if you include 1984. Because no Transformers movies have numbers in them. So there's nothing to say that Transformers 2007 is not actually Transformers 2. But it is not a sequel to the 84 movie.
No, it's an entirely different continuity.
I know. But technically...
Don't speak the deep magic to
Fast
me,
and Furious
witch.
Tokyo Drift is
I was there when
Fast
it was
and Furious
written.
3. Even though it's chronologically not in that order and it doesn't have any of the same characters. That is an example. I'm just saying. And regardless. What is this podcast if not arguing pedantics? New animated film that came out this last weekend. I think we'll have a good talk. Rachel said that we had to open up 2 hours, not 10 hours, 10 hours, maybe 10 hours, 2 hours of space for you to just talk lore. We'll probably try to keep that down. But I think there's a lot to talk about, good and bad. And that will be our main subject for today. I'm also interested to hear how it stood up to your pitch that you gave for a theoretical Transformers origin movie last week. But as always, we have thoughts from the last week, news, recent thoughts. Rachel, you got any news?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this a little while ago, but there's a company coming out. There's company Studio Trigger that we thought was coming out with what was an animated show, but it was actually just a 40th anniversary project. It's about a 4-minute animated Transformers homage.
What does that mean exactly? Any elaboration on that?
Homage to Transformers over the years.
Like
by Studio Trigger.
You said 40 minutes?
4.
4. Okay, that was what I...
No.
Okay.
I haven't
so
pulled
it's
up
like
if you want to watch it.
Oh. So that was weird. You ever wanted to see all of Transformers history, like various iterations summed up in exclusively anime style and anime aesthetics and anime... I don't know what's another word, like sensibilities. That's what that was. I wish I knew what the song was singing about. It was also in Japanese.
Transformers.
The weirdest thing was the opening was kind of like almost like a history of like the war on Cybertron, and we saw a lot of dead bodies. That was the best part.
Womp womp.
Womp womp.
Womp womp.
Anyways, I don't have a piece of news, but I
might
do
have two.
have a correction from last week, a very funny correction. So last week we talked about the death of James Earl Jones. RIP. He's
Where
not
are you
dead.
going with this?
He's not dead. No, I'm kidding. We talked about the possible future of Vader and talked about what it might be like for them to use AI, like a AI version of James Earl Jones' voice as Vader. Well, guess what? They already did, and we forgot. All of Kenobi. All of the Vader lines of Kenobi are AI generated. So we've already seen it, and it worked really well, in my opinion. It is hard. It did sound weird, but I thought it was because James Earl Jones was in his like late 80s. But it was because it was computer generated. But I think it was effective in the end. So that was just a correction from last week. What other news you got?
It's another video.
What is it?
Have you heard of Amari Guishan?
No.
He is a chocolate artist who is commissioned to do a lot of things. Like it's all edible works of art that he creates. He created a giant
I think I've
head
seen this. Or at least something
Optimus Prime from
similar. Yeah, that's
Transformers 1.
crazy.
And he
paints it.
Yeah, with like edible micas or whatever. Anyways,
right, there
that was
it is.
And it glows. That's so scary.
Chocolate is prime.
Oh. Shockwave.
The other thing I have is not news, but Rachel, we have a very exciting possibility, a very exciting opportunity for the podcast.
Was it when I told you we should go to Japan for Godzilla Con?
Oh, I saw that you texted me something like that, and I forgot to actually look at it.
Of course you did.
Well, we'll look at that in a second. This is a very exciting opportunity, Rachel, because someone has reached out to the podcast Instagram page with a very exciting offer. Hi, love your content. My name's blank. I'll leave her name out.
Doxed.
And I'm part of a pet apparel brand called WoofChewy.official. We think we'd make a fantastic fit for our influencer program. We would love to collaborate with you and send over some complimentary merchandise. If you're interested in becoming one of our ambassadors, just reach out by DM and we'll be happy to help. So,
Athena,
how
what
do
do
you
you
feel
think?
about being a dog brand ambassador as the podcast? We could, do you know what, if we could actually get some free stuff from them and we like put it on her and then
so
on Athena and then send the photos back. My dog doesn't like it.
Sorry, we tried, but my dog really hates this. Also, don't ask. She's a weird breed. She's inbred.
So, you're going places when people start reaching out to you for either. What was that noise?
That was me.
Were you just messing with her?
I am.
She wasn't happy about that. You know the podcast is going places when we start getting either fraudulent and or like, it's not necessarily. I think this brand probably exists, so it's more likely just like a scam rather than a fraud. Which obviously there's a lot of crossover.
Let's give them access to our PayPals.
Like they're trying to take advantage of us, I think is probably what it is. But it seemed
We're
to be
the only
real.
people who can take advantage of
But
it.
also, I guess what theoretically is that we have no idea who she is. The brand exists, but who the heck she is, no idea.
Who the heck are you?
Anyways, that's all I got. What else you got?
That's all I got.
Cool. Well, cool. We can.
Are we going to talk about? I thought we were going to talk about the thing I did this weekend.
Oh, go for it. I didn't know you wanted to.
Oh,
Let's
I
do
thought
it.
you mentioned it. Talk about it on the podcast.
Probably. All right, go. Shoot. Tell us the story.
I got the opportunity to go see Hans Zimmer live in concert this last weekend. It was amazing. Very nice. 10 out of 10. My mom and I went, and it was absolutely a bucket list item for me because he's like 73 and I wanted to see him before the inevitable happens to us all. So very much highly recommend if you can go see him. I did not have to pay that much. Okay, so by that much, I mean like for a large concert of that size for 3 hours, I only paid $125 each for tickets. And by each, my mom. So that was really cool. Some of the music we got to see none of it really relates to the podcast, but we're going to talk about it anyways. In order, what we got House Atreides from Dune is the intro, and we got Mombasa from Inception. Very high energy song. We got a Wonder Woman suite. We got a Man of Steel suite. Gladiator.
Ooh, that Man of Steel. Oh, I don't think it never comes up on the podcast. I'm a huge Superman fan. I don't like Man of Steel particularly much, but that theme rules. Oh,
Yeah.
That's cool.
So we got Man of Steel, and we got Gladiator, which is really gorgeous.
Okay.
Gladiator.
Okay.
It was long. It was probably like maybe a 10, 15-minute set.
Wow.
I feel like you could tell how much he loves the film or by how much he wanted to. And then we did, of course, well, not me. I was watching. He did a Pirates of the Caribbean suite.
Of course. Very good.
We got Davy Jones's Locket theme, like
that's
which
a good one.
was, I was not expecting that at all because he hasn't done that before, and it was on, like someone played it.
That's fun.
When it started, it was funny because a row or two behind me went when it started, and some other people reacted
cute.
like that too. And I turned to my
love
mom
that.
with my hand over my mouth. I was stunned.
Are they showing like visuals? Like, is there anything
There
visually
were some
happening?
visuals. Sometimes they do movie clips, but not this time. Hans doesn't really direct. He just kind of exists in a circle in the middle of the stage and kind of like plays along and vibes. They're all just vibing out.
Sure.
And then we took a 20-minute intermission. And then, so he's actually released an album last year, which kind of has the most of what he's done. We then got another song from Dune, actually Dune 2. It's like a time of quiet between the storms. I don't know. It was pretty good.
Did you say that when they did one of the Dune songs, they did the vocalization?
I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay. I thought we
No, you're
had
good.
passed.
And we did the last samurai. He did the Last Samurai suite, which I've not seen.
Oh, interesting.
And then the Dark Knight suite, which was fun.
That's a good one too.
Dark Phoenix.
bizarre.
And he started this because he would talk
Truly
to us
bizarre.
throughout the concert. He'd heckle the crowd a little bit. One lady missed the first 2 songs and was coming into her seat like in the front second row on the floor. And he saw her and he goes, "Hey, you missed the start, but
You
we
gotta do
can..."
it in a German accent.
Yeah, no. He said, "You missed the start. We can go back and start again if you'd like." And they put the spotlight and the camera on her, and
Whoa.
she was
That's hilarious.
mortified. He was giving her a hard time. But anyways, we did Dark Phoenix, and he goes,
X-Men Dark Phoenix for those who
X-Men
don't know.
Dark
the
Phoenix.
the last live action X-Men movie that was just god awful.
and he goes, he's got the mic, and he goes, "You know, no one ever sets out to make a bad movie," which was a wild way to. And I haven't seen it, but it's very pretty universally disliked. And so he kind of does a little bit of a monologue, and then he kind of comes back and he goes, "So we're gonna play some music from a movie none of you have probably seen, and people don't really like, but we still like playing the music, so we're gonna do it anyways." It was very funny. And then he went into Dunkirk.
Ooh, interesting.
We went back to Dune, and we got Paul's Dream, which is like the iconic female vocalist. Actually, I would say probably most of his orchestra was female.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
pretty cool.
Okay.
And then we got the Interstellar Suite, which is kind of interesting because he mentioned how he's like, so I write, and the reason I continue writing is to try to find that perfect piece. And he goes, and I think this next piece is getting close. And he started the Interstellar Suite, and so started with some of the music, like I think were related to the black hole, very ethereal, the soprano,
organ.
yeah. And then of course we got Cornfield Chase. No, actually, we got the docking music,
Oh yeah. That's
and
the
then I
iconic
think we
one.
got
Yeah.
Cornfield Chase. And we got the Lion King Suite.
I'm so happy for you.
I bawled my eyes out. We didn't even have to start. So the guy who helped Hans did like the orchestral part, and then Lebo M did like the choral, like lyrics part. So they've worked together for years, and he is the first voice you hear in Circle of Life. He's the first
Oh,
voice.
crazy.
That's him,
That's cool.
the male voice. And so he also did I have a cassette of music inspired by the Pride Lands. I just don't think I made the cut, and it's him. And a lot of that
Okay.
music has been adapted into the Broadway stage play.
Oh,
So
interesting.
very
Okay.
much my childhood. And so him performing that, and his daughter was also performing on stage with Hans, which
cute.
is very. And so he didn't say anything about. He didn't say anything about James Earl Jones passing away, but they performed. Have you seen the second Lion King movie?
way back on like
Okay.
VHS,
So
like so long ago.
There's a song in that movie called "He Lives in You," and it's at the beginning of that movie. It's like
Okay.
it's Circle of Life. They sang that,
Oh,
which was
interesting.
so good. It's such a good song.
They played a song from Lion King 2, Simba's Pride.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
They
you know,
did. And it actually, it existed before the second movie.
the song did.
Yes, that song was on the album. It was literally called "Inspired by the Pride Lands." Music inspired by
So
the
it
Pride
was
Lands.
just original music that was not in Lion King. Did they just decide, because I would imagine the music from Lion King was just so popular that they decided to just make more Lion King music. In fact,
I think they were just ones that didn't make the cut. They just made other songs that did not make it into the final.
so. It
first
was
movie.
made for the first film.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so that makes more sense. So it was cut music from the
I
original.
believe
film.
so.
That makes
or
way more
written
sense.
afterward, just because he liked stuff he came up with.
I'm curious because those are two very different things.
Well,
That's two different things. I'm interested. It's unique. Like, I'm curious. Is it a song he made for Lion King that simply did not make the cut? Is it a song that was made just because, or was it a song made for Lion King 2? Which it sounds like it was not that last one.
It was originally an independent thing inspired with songs performances inspired by, but they were not featured on it. And then they continued to. People came on board from the exec board, and so it never made it into the film. But it's kind of like inspired by it, so it's just kind of its own separate thing. And then they, put it into adaptations into the Broadway play. But so we got the Lion King suite. Almost the biggest part of the suite was the music from the Stampede, which is kind of like it's kind
A little on the nose.
of, like actually like the
Right
second
in front of the
part.
fresh corpse of James Earl Jones.
Oh no! And so then it ended. But you don't leave till the house lights come up. That's what everyone said. Don't
absolutely.
leave. And so everyone like stood and we're like, yay, again. And so like within 2 minutes, they're like, all right, we're coming back out. And they played No Time to Die from James Bond.
Not a great one to save for the encore.
The last song they played was Time from Inception.
Nice.
So they kind of hyped us all up.
Uh-huh.
And then they played Time, and you could hear a pin drop. It was a massive, massive. It was like a football stadium. Mm-hmm. Just silence. Mm-hmm. So that was it. It was like 3 hours long.
Oh, wild. Wow. I was sitting here thinking, like, this is a lot. 3 hours. That's with only a 20-minute intermission. That's really interesting.
It was amazing. So highly recommend if you can go see him. If we have any listeners from Baltimore, I'm so sorry. He got sick that night of their concert. Not this last weekend, but the weekend before, and canceled like 2 hours before the concert started.
That's awful.
So I'm so sorry.
Wow.
I
That
saw someone on TikTok say thanks for taking one for the team. I really hope you get a refund, but ultimately I hope they just tag it on back to the end and they come back for you guys.
Sure.
Because
That's crazy.
that sucks. Anyways, 10 out of 10. Cried. We're in the middle of the Lion King suite and my mom just like reaches into my like peripheral with a tissue. Because I'm like bawling my eyes out. I didn't cry as much as I thought I would, but I got teary-eyed during the Pirates part because they play Will and Elizabeth's theme. And I'm like, they only get to see each other one day every 10 years.
I did just remember, I do have a piece of news that is related to something we both love, that I did send this to you.
Is it Athena?
Yes. There's no reason to think that there's ever going to be much of a continuation on this for it to be a topic on the podcast. But we both love the Cartoon Network miniseries Over the Garden Wall. And they announced... they teased something. It's the 10th anniversary, and on November 3rd, it's really weird that they're waiting until after Halloween. There's something. They just said something is coming. And they posted this on Instagram, and they tagged Aardman. Aardman is the stop-motion studio that made Wallace and Gromit. And they also did that one short in...
Cheese, Gromit.
They did that one of the Star Wars Visions 2 shorts, the racing one.
Oh, yeah.
So potentially now it could be very similar to what we just saw, that Transformers animated thing. The montage, the homage. It could be a short. It's probably nothing huge, but it's exciting. It's exciting that Cartoon Network is like doing something. So we both love that show. If you've never watched it, highly recommend Over the Garden Wall. This is the time of year to be watching it. In the lead up to Halloween. And with that, transition into Transformers 1. Rachel, well, first off, let's give a little bit of backstory. Transformers 1 is an animated film. Totally new continuity for Transformers. It's telling the story of how...
It is an origin story.
Yes, Megatron and Optimus Prime became who they are, drawing from the original story of how they had different names and they were lower tiers in society. Not at all like the original origin, in which Megatron was already Megatron and literally came out of the shadows, and Optimus Prime was the young Orion Rack.
Bullied some poor union worker and nearly killed him.
It's one of my favorite clips of whenever we did our best of year one, and I did a montage of my stupid impressions.
Oh yeah,
and
you've
it's
done
just
some.
hello, child, which I realize is just ripping off another thing that we love, the
Kids.
Worthy Kids witch video. He's not that in this, and I appreciate that. He's actually normally Megatron, not a subtle character, very subtle in this movie, actually.
D16.
At least, but it's a new origin story for Transformers. is 3D animated. And actually, I was just reading, it is produced by Michael Bay. He is somewhat involved. It did come out of, so last week on the Bumblebee episode, we talked about, there came a point where Paramount was like, okay, we can turn Transformers into a massive franchise, not just be releasing one movie every 3 or 4 years. And what came out of that was Transformers 5, Bumblebee, and this. This is actually a result of that plan, which I am shocked to learn that. So this is still, and there's one detail we'll talk about that does still kind of tie it back weirdly. Like there's still pieces of DNA of the Michael Bay movies in here, which is really fascinating. But Rachel, can you give us and also it's directed by Josh Cooley. Is that his name? Mm-hmm. Who directed not Transformers. Yeah, he did direct Transformers 1, but he also directed Toy Story 4 and has worked with Pixar for a long time. I think this is actually his first movie he worked on that wasn't Pixar. He worked on the screenplay for Inside Out, so knows what he's doing. Can you give us like a paragraph? Can you nail it down? Because we're going to talk a lot about this movie. Just to kind of explain to our listeners what this movie's about, can you do like a paragraph plot summary just to like condense it down, and then we can get into details after?
So I think. Let me think. Okay, so it's a bit of it is both a hero's journey and a villain origin story. To sum it up,
Yeah.
We start off with the friendship of Orion Pax, who is
To become Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime. That's his first government name.
Voiced by Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
That's a good reaction.
And D16, who will become Megatron, they're both miners, as in ERs. They mine Energon for the population of Cybertron, along with a wide cast of other very recognizable characters. But Orion he's always kind of looking for something. He's always looking for something more. He's not very content to kind of stay in his lane, which I kind of ironically what D16 is content to do. He's content to really kind of do things, kind of stay under the radar. And so what this leads to is a journey from like kind of the depths of Cybertron to the surface, uncovering a massive plot of something that happened. They called it 50 cycles ago? That's probably like years.
Yeah.
It's probably more like 50 million years or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
1,000
in human years. Yeah.
It sure ain't. I don't know how time works on this specific Cybertron.
Before, it would seem like before any of our main characters were born.
Yes.
Like they were not around whenever this happened.
I feel like the equivalent is like, as an American, probably like the Revolutionary War happening.
Sure.
It wasn't super long, or maybe it wasn't super long ago, but it was a while ago that I was going to say people may remember it. If you're still alive from the Revolutionary War, shout out.
Salute to our vets.
Salute to our vets. But like, it's very common in the pop culture and the memorials. And so through their adventure to the surface with Alita 1 and he's Bumblebee.
Yeah.
That's his name.
But I just realized they don't ever actually give him that name
Bumblebee.
in this movie, which is surprising.
B127.
Yes. Who they just call B. But okay, real fast.
You're trying to tell me a paragraph summary.
I know. They call him B and they call Megatron D. Who thought that was a good idea? That you have 4 main characters and one goes by B and one goes by D. And they're not like a pair.
Alita 1, so technically you have BD1, which is the droid from Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor. So full circle to our niche interests. So they get to the surface. They uncover a massive plot that would actually shake all of Cybertronian leadership culture to its core. And then their goal is to get this news back to the general population to
expose the fraudulent leader.
Yeah, expose the fraudulent leader. And then we see
little whispers of Andor in there.
Your mother is dead. No. And through that, you see kind of the split between Orion and D16 because they have very, very different ways that they want to go about it. Violence and peace. And then that creates the schism when... Is that the word I'm looking for? Megan, you're going to tell me if I said that wrong or not.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
That divides them and ultimately leads to their new positions and leaderships over their respective factions. And the movie kind of ends on like slightly a slight kind of hope. If you have seen any Transformers, the citizens are like, oh, we can have a new start. In the background, you're like, oh, that's not going to end well. So it ends with the faction split essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the formation of you get an name explanation for the Autobots and the Decepticons. So we normally structure our reviews with dubs, as in W's, L's, and hmms. So just, Rachel, give me, I don't know, maybe just like do you want to do like biggest dub, do L's, and then come back and like do list like smaller details, or do you want to reverse that and do like small details and then conclude with big?
I think we should do big ones because that's kind of how I get my notes, and I probably have more than 3.
That's fine. Give me like your biggest thing that you liked about this movie. Biggest dub.
This, for me personally, is what I have been waiting for in a Transformers film. We were talking after the movie yesterday because if you ever go see a movie with us in our friend group, we stand in the theater for like 20 minutes afterward, lobby, and just yap. This is what I have been looking for in a Transformers film because when we did our pitches, what I was looking for really specifically was something pre-war, something that showed the unrest that would lead to it, whether that was through political intrigue or just like unfair caste systems. And you get both.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the... when I was going to say, one of my notes was big fan of a caste system. And what I mean is in a plot movie. I'm not actually in favor of a real life caste system.
Yes.
I'd like to specify that.
It makes for a compelling Transformers narrative.
It does. And I like I think it's very...
and what is the caste system here?
You know what? It's not really spoken of a whole lot. What it was really kind of focused on was you almost had like, I'm sure there's more, but you had the leader, and then there's probably like a subgroup there, and then probably like the normal. So it's really actually Transformers and miners who cannot transform.
Yep.
Cogs
is what they call them?
Transformation cogs is what they do not have, but yeah, they call them no cogs. So they can't transform, and that's kind of the thing when you're called a Transformer. So it separates them. It's almost like
it's like two races. That's a big element of the movie that we can talk about in a minute, but like to them there's these two kinds of sentient beings.
Yeah, two kinds of things. Yeah. And so you have the leader who is a Transformer. Did you like the text I sent you 10 minutes into the film about the bad vibes?
Who is who?
Sentinel Prime.
Yeah.
Who's not one of the original 13. That's important. That's an important...
One of the original 13 primes, right?
He's not. That's an important mouse tool that we'll need for later. But...
And if you've seen... I mean, okay. Go ahead and say what happens with him.
He's awful in any iteration, but what happened was he was an assistant to the 13, and he betrayed them to the Quintessons.
Yep.
Which I've always said is quintessence, but that's
what I thought they were called too. They called quintessons in this movie at least.
Killed the 13 to take power. Scum. Anyways, so that's the big scandal that this revered leader is actually a fraud, almost like a false god. That's almost like she's pretty much worshipped. He's supposed to be like helping them, trying to defeat the Quintessons, which alludes to a previous war. Which I don't know if... I think the Transformers were probably slaves, which is what they were in other continuities to the Quintessons. And there's an uprising, things like that, depending. It could be a little bit different. But yes, so those are basically the two caste systems. So big fan of an underdog. So you have two underdogs that make their way for... as someone who's a really big fan of the Narkina 5 scene in Andor, I'm a big fan of Uprisings.
So, right, real fast, we were talking about Sentinel Prime, and the reason I asked about that was,
he sucks in every comic
is he
movie.
always a betrayer? Every time?
I don't know if he's always a betrayer, but he just kind of sucks.
Yeah, because the only version I know is from Transformers: Dark of the Moon, the third live-action film,
He's
in which
just kind of an...
he had in... Oh, Athena, write that down. Normally wait till me minute for that.
She ain't paying attention.
In that one, his big line is that a deal had to be made, and he had made a deal with the Decepticons.
If I had a nickel for every time.
In this one, he made a deal with the Quintessons.
Yep.
To pretty much make himself leader over, and pretty much, like, there is a streak of kind of good. Like, he did create peace. Obviously, it's a false peace. Obviously, it's a lot of evil there, but he's kind of a... Well, it's almost like if you merged Hopper from Bug's Life with, like...
That's an old reference.
Because in that Hopper
movie's older than some of our listeners.
Not me. In that Hopper was forcing the ants to like collect food for him. In this, he's forcing the Transformers to collect food, but it's for someone else. And I think it's like that, but it's also, I don't know, I can't think of an example. But I did think, while they didn't give him a ton of space to be interesting, there was a little bit of depth there as a villain.
Unpaid intern.
Unpaid intern
is the 13's unpaid intern.
Oh, that's funny. But he is very obviously, like, the moment he shows up,
he very
on
much
screen,
gives
like,
Lightning McQueen energy, like, before the character development.
Sure. But like, this guy's lying. Like, the moment he shows up, like, this movie that we can talk about it later, but this movie is very obvious in a lot of its elements, and that's probably one of the worst. But anyways, you were wanting to talk about what you liked, which was...
So yeah, the big point, that was the plot that I wanted. I didn't want something on Earth. I was like, just give me a Transformers movie. So
you're just generally happy with the setting of the film.
Yeah. There's some interesting I don't know. That was like the big one. Should I keep moving on?
Let me give one. I have, like, there are two main elements I really like about this movie that kind of merge, but to kind of separate them, one thing I just really loved is I genuinely enjoyed the friendship between Megatron and Optimus Prime. I did not think this movie would be able to do that well. I did not anticipate that their friendship would be genuine, but there's especially one scene towards the beginning where I'm just gonna keep calling him Optimus Prime because it's easier. Gives Megatron a sticker, which is very strange, but I found very cute. In a movie that's meant for kids, that's about toys.
I think the word you're looking for is decal.
Yeah, they call it a decal, but it's very flimsy. It's a sticker. And
actually,
it's a toy movie that has kids, but also all the adults who watch it are probably collectors. Like, any adult going to see this movie without a child is a collector. And so to have Megatron be a collector...
What about our whole group?
And it's specifically... what I do like about this movie, there's a lot of pitfalls prequels fall into. But Transformers is actually one of those series where people are very familiar with the elements of it, but none of it makes sense. Like, why that logo? Why Autobots? Why Decepticons? Like, what is the war about? Like, most people know the origin of Batman, of Superman, of Spider-Man, of, like, Anakin Skywalker, Luke Skywalker. Like, these are things that just generally known. Even before the Star Wars prequels, still you just generally knew, like, what happened with Obi-Wan and what happened with Anakin. But here, there doesn't... I mean, as far as I know, there's not normally a very clear explanation, at least in the general pop culture, of why are the good guys the Autobots? Why are the bad guys the Decepticons? What do the logos mean? What was the war about on Cybertron? Like, normally those things are just givens in Transformers. Like, even look at the Transformers, the Autobot movie, the Michael Bay movies. Those are just givens. So I like that this movie actually kind of, like, doesn't, like, do the other end is oftentimes prequels will go out of their way to explain very small unnecessary details. Like, it's not a prequel, but Pirates of the Caribbean 5, we get segments of that about young Jack Sparrow, and there's a sequence where they explain every single thing that he has, the hat, the gun, the different compass, it's like that. No one cares. I don't care where he got all his stuff. That's just, those are givens. The gear of him is a given. Or like Solo explains where he got his pistol from. That's kind of interesting because of who it came from. But ultimately, no one is watching The New Hope and wondering, where did Han Solo get his pistol? But I do feel like I've always had the question of, what is going on with Transformers? I don't understand any of this. And I do appreciate this movie. I've kind of veered off, but to come back around, this movie, I think, organically works into the film itself, explaining some things about Transformers. And one of them being why Megatron's name is Megatron and what the heck the Decepticon logo is. And they're combined. There was a Prime named Megatronus that he really looked up to.
Megabronus.
And he's a big fan. He's a fanboy. Megatron is a fanboy. And Optimus Prime, as a friend, gives him this very rare decal sticker at the beginning and sticks it on his chest. And
Vintage.
Anyone's gonna know. Oh crap! That's like becomes his swastika, pretty much. Like it becomes the logo of the villains, and we know exactly why Megatron's name is what it is, and where this symbol is gonna come from. But it's rooted in this what I find genuinely sweet moment at the beginning of the film. If you want to establish Megatron, because what you never feel in the original cartoon is the idea that Optimus Prime and Megatron were friends. Because Megatron, character...
No, they had beef with each other in the 80s.
That character, Megatron in the original cartoon, doesn't seem like someone who can have friends. He's so over-the-top evil. He's an 80s cartoon villain. But this Megatron does feel like a guy that someone could be friends with. And you talked about him being passive. He does have an interesting... Like, the dynamic between Orion Pax, aka Optimus Prime, and Megatron, it's an interesting dynamic, and their friendship is genuinely sweet. I will say though, they needed something better than a fist bump. Their like friendship thing, like their secret handshake, is just a fist bump, and they do it a lot. They needed something else, anything else. Because fist bump is just too basic. It's not interesting. It's not very endearing. And when I felt like the writing worked, that felt like the sticker, like a small thing.
Guys don't have secret handshakes. That's too girly.
I don't know. That's kind of a movie thing, is to give two friends like a secret hand. It doesn't need to be that. It just is like anything else. The fist bump is just, it was nothing to me. But the friendship felt genuine throughout the film. They would interact, and it really reflects mostly on Megatron as a character here, is that he has a very surprising character arc. Well, the arc is not surprising. He becomes evil at the end. But where he starts, his characterization throughout most of the film is interesting.
Are we the baddies?
And like, the movie that's most like this that I think about is that, at least that I like, is X-Men First Class. That is about Xavier and Magneto meeting. Magneto is never gonna be a hero. Like that character, you know exactly where he's coming from the moment. But like, if you had never seen Transformers, I don't know if you would anticipate, other than the fact that he's gray.
So maybe that baby that was behind us had a life-changing moment at the end of the film.
Yeah. I think this. Give me your other major dub for this.
I really.
Athena, you can wait your turn. You haven't even seen the movie. They don't allow cats in the theater.
I thought there was some interesting lore implication. Maybe I'll put that in the
Okay.
But it's not really. It's not really a It's just interesting. I actually really enjoyed the art of this movie.
Okay, I think we might be on opposite ends of that. Like, I don't hate it, but please continue.
I think they actually felt okay. So it's an animated film.
Sure.
They moved so fluidly. It was actually really surprising that they felt, to me, a little actually more like sentient beings than just metal. Mm-hmm. It's like they had a lot of flex to them, which I thought was actually very interesting. So that's kind of nice to see outside of the G1. You got like 6 joints you get to move from. You got 6 toy joints. So this felt more like bodies, I guess. But the other thing I really liked, this is my favorite iteration of Cybertron. This is my favorite depiction. I think the idea of, and we see this in the mining scene at the beginning, and we see it on the surface as well. The planet is moving. actually quite significantly, which does make me wonder, like, so how'd y'all build? Did it just do that? Is it certain areas? And the way it like moves and changes, because the beginning it says that Cybertron is Primus, their god, who created them. The idea that it moves and changes really gives confirmation to the idea that their planet is living and breathing. It was very interesting. Did it kind of give me some mystery flesh pit vibes? Yes. Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I really have to give some context. There's this like ongoing analog story about, it's called Mystery Flesh Pit National Park.
Okay.
And like
analog horror?
It's through like videos and like someone has
okay.
actually gone, the creator has gone through the whole route of making like merchandise for this. Like it's a real national park, videos, incident reports, park maps. YouTuber Wendigoon has a really good video covering it. I probably watch it once a month. I just get, it's such a weird thing. The idea is that somewhere out west, when drilling for oil, some prospectors found a being. They don't know what it is and they don't know how big it is. But they found an opening to the creature and basically put a national park in it.
Interesting.
So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I sound insane. But if you're on that like that side of niche YouTube interest, there's just a little bit of that. And I had a joke. I'm gonna put this on the but anyways, I really thought it was gorgeous. I thought the surface of Cybertron was gorgeous, and there's a lot of continuities where they like build in and around and through the planet. Maybe not on the surface, but it felt. I didn't even mind that there seemed to be like some foliage. I didn't really have an issue
Something
with
you complain a lot about with Transformers 5.
I do, because it was golf turf. This at least felt like it matched, and because there was some form of fauna, which there are many forms of fauna across the continuities, whatever those things were, deer, whatever. And I'll get to something about the Quintessons, because they're kind of organic too. So it might be related to that.
Sure.
But either way, maybe it's the opposite from Transformers 4 when they dropped bombs of metal on Earth. They dropped like flower bombs on Cybertron. But I really thought it was genuinely pretty because there's so many. The Bayverse, I think it's ugly. It's also dead.
Agreed.
Rip.
Yeah, specifically Cybertron is just dead. Yeah.
It's just ugly. It looks great in the Bumblebee movie.
Yes.
But I just thought it was really pretty, and it's actually kind of like, this is kind of, I think, a nice addition to the way it could look, other than like just straight metal.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. To me, I definitely don't hate how the movie looks, but I found the movie mostly visually uninspired. My main like compliment would be, I do think the coloring is really nice. I think that, and the texturing, like things are nice and shiny. It is generally pleasing to look at. But like, I think if there's so many animated movies specifically that are really good at establishing like a city. I think of like Ernest and Celestine, the French animated film about, you have the bear civilization, which is actually just a small like cottage village, and then underneath it is the mouse village, very similar to another one that does it well, which is Flushed Away. Like they do a good job of making these like underground rat cities or mouse cities feel like they have character. Or like I'm sure there's another. You know what? Even I think about it, like I don't really like Zootopia, but I do feel like the actual city of Zootopia has a lot of personality, and is like, it's interesting to see how the different animals get around and how they all have their own jobs and all of that. Like, I never got a real sense of what like life was like here. And I think there was a really good chance. The one time you kind of have it, other than seeing all the miners with their jobs, is that at one point, Optimus Prime accidentally like drops into like a party. And that's kind of interesting.
Like a bar.
Yeah, like that's kind of interesting. And like they kind of have like Cybertron cubes as like food.
Energon.
Yeah, Energon cubes. Like that was kind of interesting. And the whole race at the beginning is a cultural event. So that was interesting. But
do you think they're F1 or NASCAR fans?
I
think that felt more NASCAR than F1.
Yeah, I would say so. but
Dale Earnhardt Jr. I bet they'd be
I would
fans.
say that like the character designs aren't super appealing. None of it's bad. It's just like I also think of other animated films the way that they are like constructed like visually, like obviously like Spider-Verse, but also Toy Story 4, the same director's other movie, and Inside Out. And also I had another example on top of my head. Oh, it's gone. Though you want to talk about a world that feels like it has personalities, also Fantastic Mr. Fox is another one that came to mind. Just like for some reason animal worlds are well fleshed out. But I'm totally blanking, but like so many animated films, like they visually do interesting things. Like they have like interesting camera movement. They have nice color and like nice lighting effects. Like I just never felt like this ever had a visual identity or personality.
Interesting.
So it just didn't really pop for me. I did love that when it got to the surface, it was like a synth wavy sun, had like lines in front of it. I appreciate kind of like 80s sort of callback. There were a couple shots I really liked. One was Sentinel Prime has a gigantic sword, like really broad, and he has it up to now you have to help remind me of the character's name. The only living Prime that they discover on the surface, Alpha Trion. They capture him. Sentinel has his sword to his neck
because he wasn't dead. He just powered down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a shot of... I already forgot his name.
Sentinel?
No, the other one.
Alpha Trion.
Alpha Trion. It's a shot of Alpha Trion and the sword to his neck, and you see Sentinel's face as a reflection in the sword for their conversation. Just creative.
There were some really good reflective shots.
Mm-hmm. So they're using reflections in interesting ways. I also liked the shot... There was a shot of the... Quintessons, when they arrived, it was a really nice, they have a huge ship. It's a very wide shot of the ship. And this is the design on that.
It looked like an animal.
Yes.
But it looked like something out of a Ghibli film.
Yeah, the kind of ships they have in those.
Weird, freaky thing from like maybe Nazca and the Valley of the Wind.
Sure. The design on the Quintesson ship was amazing. That really stuck out to me. So there was some stuff I liked for sure, but generally, it's interesting that you brought up how much you liked how everything looked. I was kind of mid on it. My other big dub is that the friendship and the way Megatron is written leads him into this interesting path of becoming evil, and I liked the way this movie dipped into darker material.
There's a point in the movie where you go, oh.
Yes, there's a couple of those.
I feel like there's a turning point that's kind of like, oh.
Yeah, and it never feels sustained. The movie always kind of pulls back. And I'm not saying this movie needs to be super dark. I like the idea of them making a...
Where's my R-rated Darth Vader film?
Like, the last two were pretty gritty, pretty... adult oriented. I'm totally fine with them making one for kids, but they decided to go here, and I'm glad they did. But anytime that
I think they were trying to hit a happy medium.
Yeah, but rather I see a happy medium. This is more just like wildly oscillating between the two. That it's mostly very kid friendly, mostly very juvenile, very just like fun and friendly, and then it would dip into excellently executed. I thought like it wasn't like needlessly dark, but I like, for example, just kind of start from like best, like not like the smaller ones to the best ones. I want to talk about the best one last. Whenever Alpha Trion gets captured, Arachnid, is that her name?
Yeah.
She's got a bunch of like spiky arm things, and
Because she's a spider, basically.
she drops down on him, and she just does a flurry attack, and it is brutal. You just see his shirt. He's getting stabbed a million times, and I thought for sure he was dead. Then he's not. We see him alive a few minutes later, and then he does get killed. He gets decapitated. So just like they just really go harsh on Alpha Trion.
Bro does not make it very far in the continuities.
The way they hammer home how evil Sentinel is pretty dark. Initially, the initial time we see,
it's like the coworker you don't like, who somehow gets to be supervisor.
Pretty much. Okay, so we didn't really talk much about this. The inciting incident for the movie is there's this big race that only
The
Transformers,
Icon 5000.
which is pretty much your big Easter egg sequence. I would assume all of those are pre-existing Transformers, and you see all their names on the leaderboard. I was hoping to see, and I don't remember his name, the villain that I had pitched for my movie last week, G-Axis. I did not notice him, unfortunately. They almost win the race. It's only Transformers. They don't have the ability to transform yet. They almost win the race, and it gets the attention of Sentinel. And Sentinel wants them to effectively become motivational speakers to inspire everyone to work harder.
Yeah. Union representatives.
Which is so dark. That seriously is such a dark thing to you're going to motivate your brethren to work harder.
And the reason he wants that is because his deal with the Quintessons is he brings them Energon.
Yeah.
And they kind of let him do what he wants as long as he gets those quotas, but he's not been hitting quotas. So life's getting worse for the miners.
And then he later says, the truth is whatever I make it. Which in this day and age, it's always been true. It's always been true of governing forces. But just to have a character in this age just straight up say that is wild.
Yikes.
So that's kind of the depth I was talking about we got with that character. The other thing is just Megatron himself as the movie progresses. The best scene, probably the best scene in the movie, honestly, other than the sticker scene early on, is once our heroes are on the surface, they get captured by what was the former, what were they, the elite guard or...
The Royal Guard.
The Royal Guard, which is effectively the Decepticons, what will become the Decepticons, led by Starscream.
Which means they used to guard the Primes. That's what I'm guessing.
Yes.
And they got ousted.
Voiced by Steve Buscemi, doing just a Steve Buscemi voice. And at this point, our heroes have the ability to... Did we explain how they get the ability to transform?
No. So when
go ahead and do that.
they're looking for the Matrix of Leadership, because when the Matrix is returned, the Energon will flow. They basically have rivers, but because the Matrix disappeared, because Sentinel tried to get it, and the Matrix went, what's the password? And literally dipped from the mortal plane. I don't know how it worked, but it did. Alphatron showing them this through sand. I don't know. It's some interesting particle effects.
Oh, I will say real fast about that. So this is such a common thing in movies now. Blockbuster films almost always have a scene where rather than for a long time it was the opening crawl, Star Wars, or opening narration. And this movie does have that. But now we almost always get some sort of visualization of the past. And in this, it was Alpha Trion pretty much had a hologram.
Yeah.
It would have been really cool if it had been 2D animated. Just visually, because it didn't look very cool. Again, not very...
Interesting.
But
I actually really enjoyed it.
If it had been kind of a throwback to classic Transformers, I think it would have been pretty fun. If his projected it onto a wall rather than being a 3D projection. Just my idea. I thought it would have been cool. Anyways, continue.
And so, well, first when they interact, because also Alphatron's ready to kill someone.
Oh, absolutely.
He reveals to them, I think he asks, he's like, they got little holes in their chest. He's like, hey, what happened to you? He says it a lot more gracefully than I said that, paraphrasing. But he reveals to them that no Transformer is ever born without their transformation cogs, which is...
Oh, that's one of the other really dark things. Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry, that's what I was getting to.
No, I forgot. I wanted to mention it. I forgot about it.
And he tells them, it's not possible. That's not how they're created.
Yeah.
And he reveals to them that their cogs would have had to have been removed before they came online. Because they were like, well, we've never had one. What are you talking about? Duh, we've just never had them. And he reveals, it's not how it works. They would have had to have been removed. And so they're kind of having moments. So they get the ability to transform because I don't know what the ethics are on Cybertron. But you can loot bodies, allegedly. So he gives them, so Alphatron gives them transformation cogs from the fallen other primes. I mean, they're not using them anymore. It's fine. And so they get the ability to transform. One thing I really liked, and I don't know if I wanted to go into this, they visually change as well. I think it is very interesting.
Yeah, their robot form is also transformed.
The removal of their transformation cogs essentially stunts them physically.
Yeah.
So when they get it, they're changed more into the forms that we know and recognize.
Agreed.
But
Yeah,
anyways,
that's interesting.
absolutely wild because I think he refers to them as like infants when it happened.
Yeah, he says like when Sentinel says something about ripping them out
Newborns
of
or something.
your chest as newborns.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, that's ultra yikes. So that's how they get the ability to transform, and then when they return, well, we won't get too far ahead of ourselves, but they return. And some of them are that's how they get the ability to transform. And then we go back to Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, so they get this ability. They're on the surface. They get captured by
They escape
the guards.
from Sentinel's guards to get captured by the Royal Guards.
And it's their leader is Starscream and Megatron. So because he has transformed, Megatron now has this sense of power, and we see him becoming more aggressive. Whereas before, he literally said like, I was just going to keep my head down. I was just going to do what I was supposed to do.
Optimus.
He literally like doesn't like that Optimus Prime upsets the order of things. He just wants to kind of keep
because
that
he
down.
revered Sentinel. This is like
Yes, that's a big
tore
thing.
it down.
And now that he knows that his hero was actually there, he enslaved them. Yeah, he's been radicalized, and he just like pretty much
From one end to the other.
he pretty much decides to just stand up and walk off. And Starscream is not happy with this, and Megatron beats the crap out of him, grabs his throat, starts to squeeze his throat, and while Starscream is screaming at him, is that all you got? Is that all you got? Yeah. His voice is like crackled and turns into the classic Starscream voice. This is crazy dark, dude. Like, just like
This
the
film
way
has
it's
moments
executed.
where you're like, haha, and then 10 seconds later, you're like, oh my gosh.
It's great. It seriously is a phenomenal moment of transition for the Megatron character, establishing, okay, now this is why we have the relationship between Starscream and Megatron that we have, and it just it's so good.
I made a comment, and because Optimus is horrified in the background. I was sitting next to my best friend, and I just leaned over to her and I was like, hey, if this is us, we'd have to have a convo. We'd have to have a sit-down conversation. And she was like, she played along into it. She's like, what do you mean? I didn't kill him. He's fine. Is a hoot, but...
So these darker moments, I just felt really reflected what could have been an even better movie. I think that's...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And it's almost kind of a thing where, like, Megatron wins the Royal Guard's loyalty.
Yeah.
Y'all know what I'm trying to say. The loyalty, it's almost like an alpha thing.
Yeah, well,
like,
that's what I mean. That's literally what Starscream says. Is like it's like the power of one.
The power of two.
Yeah. It's like the power of one over another is what it was.
Yeah.
One power of one transformer over another. That's their whole. That's why he's able to win all these guys to himself. Is he's clearly the strongest and willing to take action. But those moments, they're so good and they reflect what could have been probably a really amazing movie. And I think the movie kind of refusing to pick a lane, not really committing, because the other elements are, I think, are a lot weaker. Anything I didn't talk about, I just felt like was just okay for the most part in the movie. I think it's a good transition into our L's. We can come back to minor W's because there's a lot of there's some small things I like in this movie as well, some small details. But what did you not like about this movie, Allison? Rachel? I'm normally so good about that.
Did you hear this bullshit, Tina?
Write that down. Anyways, what did you not like?
There wasn't a whole lot I didn't really like. I didn't like Chris Hemsworth's impression of Peter Cullen towards the end.
Yeah, like his voice literally starts to deepen during his big inspirational speech. Though, jazz.
I can't put that on the
I know.
on the L's.
I get excited for you when there's things in there I know you're going to like.
So for context, because we're going to go back to the dubs. You've heard me complain a lot about how when the Michael Bay films have killed someone off, there's like an absence from the rest of the continuities for that character because unfortunately there's that. That man holds that much power. 10 minutes into the movie, after Optimus escapes the archives, which is kind of an illusion, not an illusion, but like... a reference to like other continuities where he was an archivist.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't know if maybe because he doesn't have like a minor name. He has a regular name. So maybe he got fired and reduced to minor. I don't, like he's got like a real name.
I see. All the people working
B121,
down,
D16, Alita 1, and then you got Mr. First and Last Name. Ooh.
That's interesting.
But so anyways, referencing that He escapes from the guards. He hops into like a tram with D16. And what are we? Are we 10 minutes into the film? And I look in the background and I text Cameron. Hold on, I have to scroll up. I said, this is like 10 minutes in. I said, bro, I think that's Jazz behind him in the background. And I was right. Never doubt my ability to look at characters in the background. And then this picture of a crying cat. And the response was, congratulations, ha ha ha. But so anyways, that's actually the biggest dub for this film, if you ask me.
And you should have led with it.
Oh, I had to get
actually,
to the camera.
this does remind me of another element. Sorry, I wanted to quickly talk about with the darkness of the movie is that they win against Sentinel, and Megatron is dead set on killing Sentinel, and Optimus stops him and accidentally gets shot, which is again straight out of X-Men First Class.
Well, it's actually the second time he does that for someone. During the fight, when Sentinel's guards came against the Royal Guard, he jumped in front of Alita, and he didn't get injured. He just got knocked away.
Yeah.
So then I think kind of what happens the second time, you're like,
But it's not that he's trying to save Sentinels. He's trying to stop Megatron from killing him. He says, great line, actually. Probably the only real line of dialogue that I like out of Optimus in this movie is that we can't start this new civilization with an execution, which is pretty great. It's a pretty great Optimus Prime line.
Yeah.
But he does end up getting his arm shot off, and he falls into.
He gets his whole left chest just obliterated.
It's a great image.
And he falls, but Megatron catches him.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about this. Oh my gosh, yes.
And first of all, he's like, "Why would you do that?" And it's like,
yeah, Megatron said that to him.
And then and you I don't know, you can kind of see his gaze harden. You've heard that in like a movie, and he drops Optimus into the well of Allspark, which is if you drill down to the center of the earth and you drop someone down there without the idea of them getting eviscerated by the heat of the mantle, that's what that is.
And then we get a phenomenal sequence, which is Megatron falling into the earth.
Optimus.
Optimus falling into the middle of Earth, and Cybertronus. Well, it's okay. Is it the
and who?
Well, it's
Cybertron, Primus.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah. Well, I think it's the voice of Alpha Trion, kind of speaking on behalf.
He's basically like descending to heaven.
Yeah.
And
he gets bestowed upon him the Matrix of Leadership. So he literally becomes Optimus Prime in that moment, and in that moment, Megatron pretty much becomes Megatron, and it's cutting back and forth. And this was what I wanted to talk about: was Megatron.
Oh my god!
Pretty much, it's a shot. And you don't know what you're looking at, and you see. You don't know what it is. It's you realize it's a close up of Megatron's face, but you're looking at him through the tearing apart of Sentinel Prime. And then it cuts wide, and you realize.
And this
is
happening. Like in essentially what the town square would be, or like a World War II memorial that the town is built around. So everyone's watching this.
My previous point was about when this movie dips down into that darkness, into its more serious moments. That climactic moment that I had just pretty much forgotten about is. This is another example of that. Of you fully complete the transition from Megatron into becoming who you eventually know him to be, and it's interesting, and it's understandable. Like it's not just Transformers the original cartoon starts with this is super evil guy, and that's all he ever is.
He's just a jerk.
Like even when you get the origin story, he's still the identical character, but here it's. And then he yells to all the people, follow me and you'll never be deceived again. And it's just like, this is great. This is actually very good. I wish the movie had kind of built up this a little bit better.
I personally would really have a hard time following someone if they viscerally ripped them from their torso apart.
Sure.
I would kind of be like, that might have been a little extreme, guys.
Well, I think that's why that's why you kind of get a nice division of anyone who's an Autobot. They chose to follow Optimus Prime. And anyone who's a Decepticon chose to follow. They're not born Decepticons.
And he's further radicalized because throughout the whole thing, as they've been searching for the Matrix, Orion has been telling Megatron, can you imagine handing the Matrix? And not for himself, for Megatron to hand the Matrix over to Sentinel. Yeah. That's his hero. Can you imagine that for yourself? And of course he is. So to find out when Optimus gets yeeted back up to the surface as a prime, and Megatron realizes, he says, "The Matrix chose you." He's pissed.
Yeah, that's a good moment,
that's
too.
like almost
Yeah.
pretty much the point of no return. So
Yeah. Anyways, back to L's. We were talking about...
all that stemmed from, I just don't really care for Chris Hemsworth's impression of
Fair.
Peter Cullen.
So fair.
It would have been very interesting if they introduced Peter Cullen like after he got resurrected, which add this to the Optimus Prime death tally. He's deaf.
Oh, yeah. So I remember where we were at. We were talking about the speech. That's why we got on Jazz.
He's got lines. What a concept. He actually had quite a few lines. I thought they were going to kill him in the first 5 minutes. I got really scared.
But in that speech, the big inspiring speech that he gives, his voice literally gets deeper and becomes a little bit more like classic Optimus Prime. I found that a little bit goofy.
And me too. I was like, ooh.
L's. My biggest L, I've kind of been throwing in there, overly simplistic, not very visually interesting. It's also kind of weirdly paced. We spend a lot of time on the surface where I would say nothing really happens other than them learning how to transform, which I would say...
Well, they realize the Quintessons are still around. That's what leads to the...
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of plot. Okay. Let me clarify. That's a good point. Nothing interesting happens. It's a lot of exposition, a lot of plot. It breaks away from what I like about the movie. Now, like, there are some things, like Megatron becoming who he is starts to develop. But just like most of what's happening in the movie is not particularly interesting to me. So as the pacing, it just... Once they go to the surface, the kind of movie feels like it really slows down. It doesn't have as much of a... Like, they kind of... We have to do some stuff here, and then we'll go back to the main city. My biggest L, I would say, I think what could have really elevated this movie, like, could have maybe overcome some of my problems, is the voice acting, which is what you just talked about. But I'm talking about the rest of everyone. Really, my biggest gripe, it's a very obvious gripe, but, like, celebrity voice casting. Weirdly, as I was driving today... home, I was listening to last week's episode where we talked about how the mom from Transformers Bumblebee
is Bobby Hill.
I started thinking about what a voice performance that is, and I started thinking about all of King of the Hill and how those characters all have so much personality. Like, I don't even really like King of the Hill that much, but all of the characters from that show were so memorable because of the voice actors. Same thing with, like, SpongeBob, for example. Like voice performance, a trained, talented voice actor can really bring a lot of life to a character, and that's so gone in this movie. I love these actors. I think it's really good actors, but they are not equipped for this role.
So here's the thing.
Any of these roles.
I just forgot who freaking voices Alita 1.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson. I would like to see a comparison between her performance in this and her performance in Isle of Dogs, because I'll tell you it's probably the exact same.
See, yeah, I mean, but that's an interesting example, because at least with that, there's an intentional, like, Wes Anderson, one, really knows how to use those actors. Two, there's a very intentional, like, downplaying in that movie. Like, in a Wes Anderson movie, characters are very, like, simple and, like, just straightforward and intentionally kind of...
No Wes Anderson slander in this podcast.
Whereas this, the closest I would say there is to a great voice performance, not great, good, the best one is probably Keegan-Michael Key as Bumblebee, because the writing is garbage, but he does sell the character's energy, and he does approach making that character likable. Like, Bumblebee has personality, not because of the writing, but because of Keegan-Michael Key's performance. No one else in the movie really has that for me. I think that Brian Tyree Henry as Megatron approaches some of the pathos of the character at times.
I think it's also so hard when you bring in new voice actors for a franchise that's had the same for 40 years.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, like, there are so many voice actors who have a take, probably. Like, you hand them a character, because that's what actors do. Actors need to have a take on the character.
There are times where ultimately, I didn't really hate it. As much as I thought I was going to. Sure. I really thought it was going to absolutely ruin the film for me, and it didn't.
Sure. It's fine. It's all fine.
There were times where I was kind of like, this doesn't feel like a character talking to me.
Sure.
This feels like Chris Hemsworth not doing his normal accent.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's like,
Except when he tried to do Peter Cullen, he sounded like Thor.
sure, that makes a lot of sense. So I really wish you had at least a couple of voice actors in there, like actual voice actors, just to
But
like
not Chris
liven
Pratt.
things up. Like, I mean, look at even the Michael Bay movies.
Actually, if you want to bring it up.
Look, if you look at the Michael Bay movies, like I really despise the writing on those films, but like the voice performance on, like, for example, the little guy that was a Decepticon and they end up like kind of adopting. I can't remember his name.
Oh, the one that Tom Kenny voices?
Yeah, like Tom Kenny really makes that into a character. Like like offensively written, super annoying, but Tom Kenny gives that character personality.
Sorry, just because I remembered it. I can't believe they used the term GoBot as an insult.
I saw that as a trivia. I missed
this
that.
film.
I did not catch that.
I think Alita calls the trio of dudes GoBots. It's I saw that and I
You want to
went,
explain that?
GoBots are basically knockoff Transformers.
They're actual toys.
Yeah,
GoBots
they're
are
actual
real
toys. They're just...
Yeah, and that they have a GoBot joke in here, which is phenomenal.
And I was like, I turned to Anna, who
we say first names. We say
true,
first names.
I don't know if I should. She
Your
might
friend
not,
Anna.
She might not want that in this podcast.
Sure, it's fine.
She might not.
You can text her and tell me, and we'll bleep it out.
Fine.
Well, Athena will bleep it out. I think first name is fine because we cite Megan and Caleb, and we say Caleb Jacoby's whole name. But
because he's branded.
Sure. No, Brandon is a different friend.
Branded. More like you, who's brain dead.
So other L's, it's not very funny. The movie has a lot of attempts at jokes that fall totally flat.
Cameron says it's not funny, but I heard him being the loudest laughing guy in the room.
Okay. There's 3 jokes I do like a lot, and they are all either from Bumblebee or about Bumblebee. And he has the most jokes, and they're the most terrible. But at one point, he's really probably the best running joke that's at least approaching funny is that he gets knife hands and he's really excited about it. And when he first sees Megatron or Optimus Prime again after getting his knife hands, he goes, Megatron, Optimus Prime, I've got knife hands. I'm gonna cut these guys. Watch. And they'd been a running joke in the movie of like characters like turning and running, and this was the first time that was funny because the enemy they just turn and run immediately.
The first time when Optimus did it, it got me.
So that's at the beginning of the movie he's like, I can't transform. Well, watch this, and he kind of like acts like he's transforming, and then just cuts to him running away.
And he's like halfway down the hall, which I
Yeah.
think is probably what did it for me. And it's
Sure.
the silence.
Sure, it's okay, but I think
it got me a little bit.
Bumblebee yelling, "I'm gonna cut these guys! Watch!" and then they just turn and tear away.
I did lean over to my friend during that, and I was like, "Average journalist shift."
At the end, pretty much as everything's okay, everything's good, everyone's celebrating, and Optimus promotes, I guess, like, you know what I just realized is he's just assuming the role of president. Like, no one's elected him. He's just assuming he's the leader now, and he's like, I'm giving you. He's like, he's been bestowed. He has the matrix of leadership. I guess that's God has literally made him president, but
Anointed.
well, no, it's like, what does it say? It was like in the eyes of Primus is what is the exact line. In the eyes of Primus, which felt very religious. So he promotes Alita 1 to like commander or something, and he says, even though I'm a prime now, B, I'm going to need you by my side. And he goes, this is the best day of my life. I get to work for the government, which is a pretty darn funny line. That caught me.
That was probably because you have a funny mixture of ha-oh.
And then, I lost my spot. So I get to work for the government is funny, but the funniest joke in it was they get captured by the guards, and they wake up, and Bumblebee has something over his mouth, and he's like, "Why is that on his mouth?" And they say he talks too much, and they're like, even when he was unconscious, especially when he was unconscious, that's great. the implication that Bumblebee talks more when he was unconscious is great.
I'm someone who had a sleep talking roommate in college. Normal talking level 2. Scary stuff.
My last L, very tiny thing. I was pretty disappointed that the Matrix leadership did not have the fingy holes like in the original animated movie.
I don't like the way you said that.
It's just handles, not any holes for your fingies. Anyways, what other L's do you have?
That was really kind of it.
That was it? Okay.
I didn't have a lot of L's. Actually, Jazz did not get more screen time.
I agree. It was weird to have him in it as much as he did. The character didn't have any personality.
Secondary.
Didn't have in this version. He didn't. He's just a guy. The voice actor. Okay, at least he is a voice actor. I looked him up. That's all he does is voice acting. But they didn't really give him anything to do.
Just a guy.
And also, at least it is a black actor, but it's not Jazzman.
Scatman.
Scatman. Thank you. Yeah, Scatman. That is not Scatman. And it does not have the personality of a Scatman, which was unfortunate for me, in my opinion. But dubs, what other little dubs do you have? Or do you have anything more written down? Because I do.
You have a range of recognizable characters if you know who to look out for.
Sure.
I don't want to list them all, but a good chunk of characters from G1 are either in the leaderboards. You can see them in the background, recognize them. I enjoy that. Mm-hmm. Is that pandering? Maybe. Am I okay with it? Yeah, sure. Because it's nice to see a wider range when unfortunately some of these shows and movies focus on the exact same cast of characters.
Yeah.
And it's like, get some fresh characters. Because then they do get one and they just kill them off.
Sure. Yeah, I did like I even though I knew none of them, I did find the racing scene funny. Just because, like, I know all of these names are pre-existing Transformers. Like, that it kind of felt like a joke about how many Transformers there are.
Correct.
So, there were some in there I recognized. But another thing I'm kind of thinking about, Transformers, like, specifically how they're used in this movie, is Soundwave. He transforms into, like, a flying vehicle, and he shoots sound waves. Is that a usual, like, attack for him? It makes a lot of sense.
He's been a flying...
But the sound wave attack, like he shoots sound wave. Now, what's ridiculous is the one thing he does. He uses that to like free Megatron from his handcuffs.
They're like energy cufflinks, basically.
I see. It just felt very silly that like Megatron could, like Optimus Prime couldn't do it. It could
have been a frequency thing.
Sure, it just felt very silly. But it's a silly movie.
Makes them all deaf.
I really, it's mostly in the trailer, but I did really enjoy the first sequence where they transform because they're like learning how to do it.
I do. I think it's kind of, I enjoyed that they didn't know immediately. It made sense.
I was a little annoyed that at the end of that sequence, it's only like a couple of minutes and then they know how to perfectly transform. It would have been kind of fun if like that whole middle sequence, they were still figuring it out and like only knew how to transform parts of their body and like they're imperfectly transforming or maybe even transforming on accident. Like, I think that would have been fun. I think you could have drugged that out and like made that the whole like middle part of the movie. So it's like, it shows how that it was so good. I wanted more of it. And I think it would have helped the middle part feel a little better. But it is visually creative, though the rest of the time, see, the issue is I felt like the rest of the time, the fact that they could transform into vehicles kind of felt irrelevant a lot of the time.
Well, Alphatron tells them,
it
doesn't matter if you can transform or not, you're still a Transformer.
But like, that's why we're here, ultimately, is we want to see robots who transform into vehicles. And it often felt like I didn't even really notice when they did it, because one, something I forgot about. Something I forgot to talk about earlier was how I don't like how this movie looks. The way it's like shot and edited, quote unquote. It oftentimes I couldn't exactly tell what was going on. Like it wasn't very visually clear.
The fight with the Royal Guard and Sentinels Guards, no idea what was going on.
Exactly. And like the one memory I have of I thought that the vehicle elements were used really well was there's a sequence where there's a big fight at the end between Arachnid and, which I'm just now realizing her name is Arachnid because she also transforms into a helicopter.
Correct.
Did not catch that until just now because I didn't notice. Yay! I didn't notice that she turned into a helicopter. Like there was something about the way that they turned into vehicles that didn't like, because at least in the live action movies,
they're not Earth vehicles.
Yeah, but they're approximations of them. But like when they on Earth, in either a cartoon or even a live action, when they turn into a vehicle, it's very like the live action movies. It's significant because they turn into a real thing, but in this, it never really it didn't really grab me. Like for example,
it would have really taken.
Please.
I think if they couldn't have done Earth vehicles, it would have taken
Earth
anyone out
vehicles
of the
specifically.
film.
It just there was something about the way the action scenes were structured and visually represented. It just for example, in Star Wars, if a lightsaber turns on, one, because it's used sparingly, but two, there's the sound, the visual, nothing else is quite like it. Like a lightsaber means a lot in Star Wars, but it's hard for me to explain. It may just be because I tune out too easily. Just transforming didn't really mean it, except for that sequence where they really paid attention to it when they didn't know how to do it. But what I want to say, the one sequence where it did feel like it really mattered was Elita 1 and Arachnid are fighting. They have a big fight at the end. The classic, you have a girl villain and a girl hero, and they have to have their big fight. Elita 1 is trying to capture Arachnid, and she falls into a building and transforms into the bike, and it's a long sustained shot following her. The movie then chooses to visually focus on her in her motorcycle form, and you feel the speed of it. The movie shifts its focus to the fact that she's a bike, and I like that sequence. That's a good sequence. You felt the speed of her as a motorcycle. Suddenly it was not just action is happening. Oh no, she's a motorcycle, and that she's using that form to move faster. She needs to go fast. And that was it never really felt relevant that that Optimus Prime could turn into a truck. That didn't really feel like he needed to be able to do that. Partially because they all have freaking jetpacks. Everyone can get around quickly. It rarely to me felt like part of the action. Even though they were transforming, honestly I couldn't tell you any other moment that I felt like it was used well, if that makes sense. Other than, but again, it is used well with Megatron because he turns into a freaking tank, and he uses that. But again, when he's in robot form, he has the cannon on his arm. So it's this movie just generally to me just being okay. It doesn't really feel like it. There's a big gulf in this movie. A year ago, I really enjoyed the newest Ninja Turtles animated film, because that movie, the way it did action, the way it used action to tell the story, all the different Ninja Turtles have a different way, even though they all look similar. They did a good job of making them stand out from one another. They did a good job of making the action feel have weight to it. Maybe that's the biggest issue, is that there's a weight issue. And maybe it's because I was taking notes, maybe because I wasn't paying close enough attention. I do have a tendency to kind of glaze over during action scenes in general, but this is just my take on it.
Interesting.
Other dubs.
I mean, I don't know what other. I feel like I went over the biggest dubs that I had.
Do you have any other small details, anything else you've written down that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I don't know if they're dubs or just kind of. They're kind of I don't know where to put them.
Okay, we can do
but
that.
Other details.
There's things you liked. Is there anything that stood out? Any small details that stood out to you that you enjoyed? Things that you're glad they included in the movie? There's one more. I have two more, I think.
I do feel like the side characters had even though if they're only on screen, they had some form of personality. They weren't.
Who would you say had the most personality?
No. So what I mean is when it becomes apparent that Optimus and Megatron are in the race as minors, we see reactions from the other minors.
Okay.
Word spreads through the ranks, and they all get super excited because they're like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah, I do like that. I agree
and you
with that.
see other reactions from other Transformers as well. So it feels like even the secondary and tertiary characters had reactions to things.
Sure.
They weren't just spare assets.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Of the movie does pay attention to the other characters, just the nameless characters. Just gives them things to say, things to do, that makes it feel like a community, a race of people, a planet. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Small detail that I thought just kind of stood out to me, I thought was really interesting. A part that was visually interesting is during the final sequence when Megatron just kind of finally loses it, there's a long exposure effect just on his eyes, which is something you saw a lot in the 70s and 80s with the way I really want to look this up. I don't know how to explain it.
It's a long exposure.
But it's there's something about the way old television cameras captured light that sources of light would like streak, because it's not like you're not getting any blurriness on like the people. Like he himself is not long exposure, but the eyes are like streaking as you just seeing these like red dots streak throughout the action sequence. And it just made him feel more menacing, and it was just a little visual flair that I really appreciated. I have one more dub. What do you have? Anything else you want to talk about?
I do find it interesting that the Royal Guard is what becomes the first Decepticons.
Yeah,
they're already ousted really from society.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think that's really good that you have an established group that follows Megatron. So I mean, we can kind of maybe finish up our plot summary here of pretty much Megatron comes back, Optimus comes back, defeats Megatron, and banishes Megatron and the other people who had like, because in that fight they all also gang up on Megatron, and Optimus, and he wins, and so he just banishes all of them, and they become the Decepticons. Oh, sorry. There's so many scenes I forgot to write down. Another dark sequence that this is relevant to this is the final explanation for why the Decepticon logo is what it is that when Sentinel has Megatron captured, he makes fun of his sticker and carves that image, which we didn't fully explain. The sticker is Megatronus's face, and it carves it into his chest, and that's why there's a permanent image in Megatron's chest. It's literally a scar by his enemy that was his former hero. Again, dark but great narrative, I felt. And then so at the end, when he goes away, the after credits scene is that Megatron is branding all of his followers with that image, making them the Decepticons.
Super tiny detail. They sleep.
Oh, interesting. I didn't
recharge technically. That's a little like the pods that the miners in. They're recharging. And I think it's happened in other continuities, but it's absolutely not. There's really nothing in the Bayverse films that imply that they need anything to survive.
Yeah, but there's no sustenance, no sleeping.
It just exist.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd be cranky too if I was awake for 50 million years in a war. I just thought that was interesting. I was like, they got little pods.
Yeah.
It's like one big sleepover. Fallout kind of style.
Last dub, just the way it ends, it does the Bayverse. Optimus Prime does a speech/transmission at the end. Did not see that coming. That's like all the Michael Bay movies end with Optimus doing some sort of projection out into space, either to Autobots or Decepticons. They do it here
to the quintessence.
Yeah, which is how Transformers 4 ends.
Yeah.
And he also in that final monologue explains what the Autobot means. They slightly changed his classic phrase, which is not just normally it's freedom is the right of all sentient beings. It's freedom and autonomy is the right. And does he literally say you could call us Autobots? Is that what he says? Something along those lines.
Like but in the ending, we also see that because the Matrix has returned, so has Energon returned to the planet.
Yes.
So it's viable again, technically speaking. And we see so a bunch of transformation cogs come out of the well.
Oh, yeah.
And the miners didn't get them, getting them. And we see these characters return to their true design.
Yeah. And that's a cool subtext. Like the movie doesn't...
Born again? Question mark?
Yeah. The fact that there's like this concept of like your ruling class has not just forced themselves over you, but they have deprived you of what is rightfully yours. Like the right to be who you have been. I mean, okay, this is a cool time to transition into something we've been doing recently on the podcast, which is deeper philosophical thoughts.
Oh, I guess this kind of goes to deeper philosophical thoughts. Okay.
Of just like, you are made in the image of something. Something created you.
They're made in the image of Primus.
And
that was very clear.
The evil in this world wants to deprive you of the thing that creator gave you to be special. That is so true. That is 100% true in this world. That God made you special, and he loves you very much. And we are all individuals. Like we are both called to be, but this movie is saying you're an individual, you have an individual thing about you that in this example you transform into a vehicle, but then it's how you use it. But also, we're part of a collective. We're part of where we live in a society. And how we choose to live and how we choose to take care of each other matters. But also, so like that's a cool. The movie is both individualistic and collectivist at the same time, which is really great. Which is God calls us to live in community, designed us to live in community, to take care of one another, but also everyone has their own calling and gifts. I mean, this movie's. I agree with like pretty much everything this movie is trying to say, which is really great.
Can I transition this into my moment?
Sure.
I've been waiting to say this for a while. So they're mining Cybertron for Energon because the rivers have run dry. I don't know. But Cybertron is also Primus, who is their god. So I leaned over to my best friend, and so because it's like, so they're mining the body of their living god and consuming it. And I leaned over to my best friend and I went, they're eating their god.
Ooh.
And she went, I guess we kind of do that, which is a reference to communion,
the Eucharist,
the body and blood of Christ. Which she got me with that one. I was like, oh, I can't make that joke. But it was it's a weird implication.
Couple of I have. So Bumblebee, played by Keegan-Michael Key of Key and Peele, the very popular Comedy Central sketch show. One of their most popular sketches was the substitute who doesn't know how to pronounce people's names. The most famous of that was pronouncing Aaron as Aaron. And when Bumblebee introduces his created friends, because what we didn't talk about was that Bumblebee, or just Bee, is living in the most bottom level of the city, and he's by himself and he's made his own friends. He introduces them. One's name is Tron. So very obvious reference to that other thing the voice actor was in, and that's kind of
and one of the others' name is Steve, which is a reference to Transformers Prime.
Oh, is it really?
It is. Steve was just a name given to like the Vehicons, which are also like a subclass of Transformers.
Okay.
They're identical. They're copy-paste soldiers. And there was one mildly important, and he didn't have a name. And like the fandom just dubbed him Steve.
Oh, hilarious.
And
okay, I love that.
That
That's
is
great.
the name. That's his name now.
Cool. So I think that Athena knows that I have a new cinch bag because she has decided to go
See
over
the way
and
she
rub on
twitched?
it. She's now laying on it.
I have another.
Please,
Sorry.
please.
I'm so curious to what like the rest of the regular citizens of the planet were thinking during the whole last third with the fight and everything. Like, can you imagine going about? Is it too soon to make a?
You say whatever you want.
They ram one of the Energon trains into the main Icon Tower.
I did not know this is where you were going. No, it is not too soon for a 9/11 joke, I think.
And I leaned over to my best friend and I went, "Sir, a second train is." I couldn't help it. I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
It's so terrible. It's so terrible. It was just, it's too badly timed.
Yeah,
so awful. But so like I was really kind of. Can you imagine? You're just doing your thing, going to work. I don't know what you do because it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You'd be like, what is happening? And then you watch what's probably broadcasted, your president get ripped in half on national live TV.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild. That was really kind of my last or do you have one?
I have two more.
Okay, you do one.
So I'm really interested. Something that's kind of an interesting last 5 years or so trend is, so it used to be these companies who owned a thing that wasn't a movie, they license it out for another company to make, or they're owned by another company. And the company itself, the only original thing, didn't have their own like specialty studio. But then Marvel Studios became their own thing, and their logo kind of became iconic. And now everyone else wants to do that. Especially you see it with like, if you have a video game based off a PlayStation, a movie based off a PlayStation video game, there's like PlayStation Studios logo before it. And I remember like with the Sonic movie, there's like a Sega one, and with Bumblebee, they created like AllSpark Studios. Well, with this, what we got, instead of AllSpark Studios, we got Hasbro Studios. And the logo is like the silhouette changing. And I've kind of forgotten.
Oh my gosh, it goes from Optimus Prime to Mr. Potato Head. And it's all the like EPs that Hasbro owns, which ranges from Peppa Pig to Transformers.
Monopoly guy.
It was so wild.
I mean, the implication is that they're gonna make movies based on all of these, right? Like that seems to be the implication of
a My Little Pony. There's one of those too, I think.
Probably, yeah. But just especially the Mr. Potato Head, Monopoly guy,
because it's a white screen.
See, it kept getting wilder. It just kept the Peppa Pig one really threw me off. It was so crazy.
Trying to find it.
Yes, I would like to see if there's any that we missed. That was because I had forgotten. Yeah, they've had their own logo actually for a while, but it was just the same as the toy logo. It was just kind of animated, but this is like so much more. But I'm not seeing it on YouTube. But that was my final was going to kind of tie all this together. A quote. Okay, this is directly from the IMDb page, summarizing something the director said. He said that his entire generation, the director of the movie, said that an entire generation has been traumatized by the brutal death toll seen in Transformers the movie 1986. And so he aimed to create a different film that would not leave children emotionally scarred.
What's your definition of children and what's your definition of emotional? Do you know it's almost worse? Like, oh yeah, the death of this beloved child icon. You know it's almost worse watching two people who have been friends forever eventually be ripped away by different ideologies in an irredeemable way of being friends ever again. That's only ever gonna result in death. That's pretty traumatizing. This
movie is dramatically more traumatizing than the 80s. Other than the fact that Optimus Prime dies in that original 80s. Outside of that, this is a very dark movie in moment. So I thought that was a funny way to go. This final moment.
My final moment is so talk about like transforming is the right of all of them. They come with guns. This implies that out of the planet womb, they have guns and weapons. Can you imagine handing a toddler a rifle? What are you supposed like? It just kind of makes me, because that's like probably the first weapon of the four that we see when Megatron is beating the crap out of Starscream. Average day at the Decepticon base.
Yeah.
0 days since last.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Oh no! Instead of pizza parties, you get public beatings. And his arm transforms into like the iconic cannon. It's just weird that they come with weapons and no one blinks an eye. Bumblebee is thrilled that he has knife hands.
Yep.
And he's like murdered people, and he's like, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, because it's just, it's like being born with like a pocket knife attached to you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You I don't understand. It's just, this is just normal. They who else they're all concealed carrying, I guess. I don't know. It's just wild to me. Anyways, it just makes me go, huh.
And that something that we are all born with is a meme, I think. I think we're all born with a meme in our heart, which is why we really value Meme Minute, but it's longer than a minute. But is it longer than Transformers 50 cycles? Is that what it was? What was their unit of time? Cycles? Is it longer than 50 cycles? No Astro seconds. Oh man, what a absolute travesty. Not lore accurate anymore. I have no memes. So Rachel, please overwhelm us with what you have.
The official Legendary TikTok account posted this.
Legendary Pictures, who make the modern Godzilla movies in America, that is.
Why is it so quiet?
And the King Kong movies. Athena's still on my bag.
Oh, yeah. Damn.
Godzilla.
Damn, boy. Damn, boy, he's sick. Boy.
Oh, the official Legendary.
Official Legendary Pictures
Hilarious.
TikTok posted that,
That's
and I
great.
thought it was you until I looked down and saw the verified blue check.
Damn, boy.
So should I say the one that I made?
Yeah.
I'm quite proud of it. So
Let's see it.
I'll start off strong because the rest aren't very good. Transformers 1 spoilers without context.
Oh, okay. So we've got the time that one Olympic runner, like his leg blew out or something, and his dad walks him to. Oh, that's how the race ends in Transformers 1. Optimus walks Megatron to the finish line, or
They don't
tries
really
to.
quite make it
Yeah,
either.
nice. So from a video game, hey bro, do you know if this game has friendly fire? Nice. Edward Scissorhands. I'm a little.
Knife hands.
Oh,
B.
oh, nice. Now I see. Yeah. I don't think I.
That is a stock photo of a government worker.
Oh, I get to work for the government. Nice.
I almost put a picture of Surreal from Andor as a cubicle.
Good. I love it. That's really funny.
Okay,
A+.
anyway, next one. A lot of you would fold in this situation. It's a Godzilla plushie and a bear trap.
I like it.
I will not settle for anything less than the best in my kitchen.
Uh-huh.
It's a Mecha Godzilla toaster, a fake Godzilla wall head, a Godzilla mug, and a Ghidorah-themed cooking... What is that term called? Cooking...
Toaster?
No, the thing you wear. Cooking apron with some weird spikes.
Nice. Those are also oddly specific.
Oh my gosh, the thing we forgot to watch. We forgot to watch the Lego special. The Lego Star Wars
we'll do that
special.
next time.
Oh, okay.
That's next episode.
This might be a reference
And
to
also, we also forgot to talk about the Godzilla prequel comic. We'll do that next time.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Avatar, Last Airbender. Dang. Okay, all three at next time.
We're
Promise.
talking about something better today. This is a Cards Against Humanity. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to being on fire. And it's from... There's a clip from the Mustafar Lego battle, like from one of the Lego specials, of Anakin going, "Nuh-uh," and everyone going, "Yaha."
Nice. Y'all don't... What's FW? I don't... Oh, okay. Y'all don't F with Star Wars Rebels like I do, and it's like a very emo,
Very emo.
black and white image of a girl, like sad.
How can I make this about stock image?
A very like stretched out image of Godzilla. Nice. That's this podcast a lot of the time.
Damn, shoddy. Let's watch Godzilla -1. It's a guy comforting a crying girl.
Nice.
Did I make that one too?
You have
No, I didn't.
when you can't even tell if you made a
too on
meme.
brand.
That's hilarious. Oh, that's good. I think I've seen this one. It's G1 Transformers looking at their big computer, and it's just got the Captcha prove you're not. I am a human thing.
That's it.
Good memes. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for listening. This has
Did you
been
bring
a
enough
good
memes
time.
to share with the class?
Oh, I just realized I've been writing all my censored notes in the note from last week's episode.
Oh,
Oh, no, it is this week's episode. I just accidentally...
shake your phone.
Well, there's an undo button in notes as well. Do you know if you tap your finger...
Now all of China knows you own an iPhone.
Am I-
That was a Mulan reference for anyone.
Yes, I got it. Thank you for listening, guys. Appreciate you. If you saw Transformers 1, let us know. Let us know what you thought of it. Next time... we kind of just glazed over it, but I'm glad we can. It's very time. It's not really timely, so we can save it for next episode. In October, we will talk about newest on Disney Plus. They made a animated miniseries, Star Wars Lego Rebuild the Universe. Looks fun. I haven't really heard about it.
I haven't heard a whole lot about it.
I don't know if people are sleeping on it, or maybe it's just not very good. But
I've heard like the people who have seen it have enjoyed it for the most part.
So that means we got nothing else to talk about. So that'll be a good time.
It means we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for content until December for
I
Skeleton Crew.
don't know what October and November are going to be, but this marks the
out.
end of Septformers month. It was a good time. I really did not anticipate. This truly was good. Like, it was fun to talk about Bumblebee, even though it's not a great movie. It was fun to do movie pitches. Transformers 1 was quite good.
I really enjoyed it.
Just throw out just off the top of your head ranking. Best Transformers movie? Second best Transformers movie?
For me, yes.
I think it's very high up there. I think it probably has the best moments of any Transformers movie. Overall, it's hard. I don't know. One, I love the energy of the original animated film. It's just so insane.
Crackheads. And
I love the animation. It's a hard one to top overall, energy-wise.
Energon-wise?
Yeah. And Transformers 2007 is always going to have a special place in my heart. I've seen it so many times. I always enjoy watching that one.
We were leaving the theater and I went, wait, where was the military propaganda?
Yeah, So
this doesn't make me want to join the army.
It's definitely in that top 3. Like, there's that top 3, and then there's Bumblebee, and then there's Rise of the Beasts, and then there's just all the other. Well, and then Transformers 5 is off in its own insane sphere that I love, but it's by itself. But yeah, I mean, it is good. How about for this year? Have you seen anything? I don't know how many new movies you've seen this year, but is there any other, how does it compare to the rest of the movies you've seen this year? Or maybe
I've seen some wild movies this year.
Well, I mean, obviously, Inside Out 2, Kung Fu Panda 3,
4.
Oh yeah, Kung Fu Panda 4, Kong versus Skull. Gosh dang it, Godzilla X Kong. That's a tough call. Those are 4 really good, fun movies. It's tough to choose.
Personally, I think this is just so specific to my interest for this franchise. It's probably the top of it.
Yeah.
I did go see Alien Romulus by myself.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I've seen a couple of movies this year that I went with other people to see because I do watch movies with other people sometimes. I'm sorry to break it to you.
Right now, my top movie for the year is Dune 2. This is definitely not better than Dune 2. I don't think I would put it above Inside Out 2, Kung Fu Panda 3, or Godzilla X Kong. But there are scenes in here that definitely make it worth watching. I don't think you need to know much about Transformers. I think you could pretty much watch this and probably just enjoy it. That's the idea. It's a prequel movie. It's an origin movie. It's a clean entry point into the franchise, I think.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's in my ranking for just movies I can pull off the top of my head. Probably Transformers 1, Kung Fu Panda 4. This is just like my personal take on whether I enjoyed the movies.
Sure.
Transformers 1, Kung Fu Panda 4. I'm gonna throw in Alien Romulus. Yeah, Alien Romulus, Godzilla X Kong, Inside Out 2.
Fair. I would easily put this above Deadpool and Wolverine.
I don't even want to see Deadpool and Wolverine, so.
And Twisters. It's easily better than Twisters. So
Ain't no loving.
So it's not in my top 4. Anyways, as always, you can tweet or DM us memes, leave us a review. Just let us know anything you want to talk about. Send our way.
Within reason.
Sure. Related to the podcast. We can choose to just not read it. But also we don't ever get anything anyways.
This is Rachel and Cameron signing off saying, would you give a gun to a toddler?
Good night, everyone. This is Cameron and Rachel signing off saying, I wish Transformers 1 had as good of a voice cast as King of the Hill.
Damn.